Hello and welcome. I am Sam Horn, and this is Clarity Calls. I am so glad that you have carved time out of your very busy lives to be with us tonight, and you can always trust us to keep our time promises. So I hope you have paper and pen. You're ready to ink it when you think it, because we're going to be sharing some stories and insights on how we can get crystal clear why we're here and how we can turn that someday into a today. So first, what's our theme for today? This is an interactive session. Will you please get a pen right now? And I better practice what I teach. Actually, grab a pen right now, piece of paper. We're going to write down 4 words in very big letters. We actually want you to fill the whole page with these 4 words, because after our call, you're going to color them in, you're going to squiggly them, and you're going to post this. So it's insight in mind. So you see it throughout the day. And here are the 4 words. Ready? What do I want? What do I want? Do you know, on my year by the water, I had the privilege of interviewing hundreds of people. And I asked pretty simple questions. Are you happy? If so, why? And if you're not happy, why not? And what I found is that when people are happy, it is often because they are living, doing, being, and having what they want. And over on the other side, if they are not happy, it's because they're not being, doing, having what they want. So of course, now we reverse engineer this. Why? Why aren't we doing, being, or having what we want? Well, now we come up with the dirty 7. I actually, in all my interviews, I systemized this, and I found out there are often 7 reasons why we are not doing what we want, or being who we want, or having what we want. Ready? Number 1, I bet you can guess this. The number 1 reason we're not being, doing, having what we want: no time. We're busy. We're taking care of a lot of people. We feel that we just don't have the bandwidth or the time. We're running from the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed. Number 2, no money. It's like, well, I know what I want, but I can't afford it. So I'm saving my money, or I'll do it, whatever. Number 3, no support. Sometimes people know what they want. However, their significant others are critical of it, or not supportive of it, or poking holes in it. So number 3 is no support. Number 4 is no right person. Well, I know what I want, but I'm waiting until I have the right person to do it with. Or I know what I want, but I don't like to do things on my own, so I'm looking for a buddy. Number 5 is no health. We know what we want. However, our health isn't what it used to be, and we just don't have the freedom of movement or the lack of absence of pain to do what we want. So number 1, no time. Number 2, no money. Number 3, no support. Number 4, no right person. Number 5, no health. 6 is no opportunity. Well, I know what I want, but I just don't have the opportunity to do it. I don't have the education, or I don't have someone who's giving me a chance to do it, or I don't have a place to do it. I just don't have the opportunity. And number 7, no clarity. That's why we call this Clarity Calls, is because a lot of times when I would ask people, what do you want? They didn't know what they wanted, because it had been so long since they asked themselves what they wanted. They no longer knew what that looked like. What if you could get clarity in 4 minutes? Now, see, I only have 12 minutes, and I just took up about 4 of those minutes. So we've got 4 minutes to do what I call the clarity box, because in 4 minutes, asking yourself these questions, you can get crystal clear about something that you want to do or be or have that you don't currently. And then, of course, we'll figure out how to make that happen. So here's the second part of the exercise. With your pen, fresh piece of paper, please. Please draw a box on your notes. Big box, take up the whole piece of paper. Now, divide it into 4 quadrants. So put a vertical line down the center, horizontal side in the middle. So you have 4 quadrants in that box. Now, the box on the upper left, put a little 1 in it. The box on the upper right, put a little 2 in it. The box on the lower left, put a little 3. The box in the lower right, put a little 4. Okay, now we're just going to write down a few other things, and then I'm going to start asking questions, and you get to write down whatever comes to mind. On top of box 1, write the words doing, D-O-I-N-G, doing. On top of box 2, write the words not doing. Okay, now to the left of box 1, write want to, W-A-N-T-T-O, want to. Now to the left of box 3, put don't want to. Now, in a minute, I'm going to start asking questions, and please write down your answers as fast as you can. No second guessing them. Only your eyes only. Just be really honest. All right. In box 1, what are you doing in your life that you want to? Ready, go. Start writing. Maybe what you're doing in your life that you want to is walking. Maybe what you're doing in your life that you want to is meaningful work. Maybe what you're doing that you want to is planting a spring garden in spring. So now I'll be quiet. We'll do a little Jeopardy here. Da, 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 da. I'll be quiet. Next 30 seconds, just write down as many things that you can think of. What are you doing in your life? Who are you being in your life? What are you having in your life that you want to? Ready, go. Okay, 5 seconds to wrap it up. What are you doing in your life that you want to, being in your life that you want to, having in your life that you want to? All right, let's move over to box 2. I bet you can see this one coming. What are you not doing in your life that you want to? Okay, maybe what you're not doing in your life that you want to is you're not working out or exercising. Maybe what you're not doing in your life that you want to is doing a hobby. Maybe you used to be in photography, or you used to play tennis, or you used to ride horses or sing in a choir. Maybe what you're not doing in your life that you want to is, meeting the right person, or you're isolated because of COVID and you're not hanging out with people and you miss those in-person activities. Maybe what you're not doing that you want to is writing a book, launching a podcast, starting your own business. Maybe what you're not doing that you want to is traveling. Maybe you really love seeing new places, exploring new places. And once again, COVID has kind of put a damper on that. So I'll be quiet now for the next 30 seconds. What are you not doing that you want to? What do you not have that you want to? Or who are you not being that you want to? Ready, go. And we wrap up that box number 2 about what we're not doing, being, or having that we want to. Now let's come down to box 3. What are you doing that you don't want to? So maybe you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you don't want to. Maybe you're fighting with someone and you don't want to. Maybe you're overeating and you don't want to, or you're eating the wrong things and you don't want to. Maybe you become a couch potato and you're watching way too much TV or Netflix or Hulu and you don't want to. Or when I do this with millennials, a lot of times it's social media. What they're doing that they don't want to is doom scrolling and looking at everybody else's social media accounts and getting more and more shrinking in size and self-esteem. So in box 3, I'll be quiet for 30 seconds. What are you doing that you don't want to, or what do you have that you don't want, or who are you being that you don't want to be? Ready, go. And box 4. Box 4, what are we not doing and we don't want to? And yes, that's a double negative. However, this is very important box. I call this the Pema Chodron box because Pema Chodron said, nothing ever really goes away until it teaches us what we need to know. In box 4 are the things that we've learned are toxic. We don't want them and we're not doing them anymore. So many people have found out in the last year that they don't like to commute. They don't want to spend 2 hours a day on the road every day in traffic with people angry and road rage. So they're not doing it and they don't want to. Maybe in box 4, maybe you used to smoke and you're not doing it anymore and you don't want to. Maybe in box 4 is working for someone else. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you don't want to work for someone else and you're not doing it. So what are you not doing you don't want to? And please put that in box 4 and I'll tell you in just a moment why it's so important. I'll be quiet, your turn. Not doing, you don't have this in your life. You're not doing this as a person in your life and you don't want to. Okay, now we've got 1 minute to interpret this and then turn it over to Ivan. All right, please circle what you have in box 1 and box 4. That's what's right with your life. That is what you're doing, what you have, or what you're not doing and what you don't have that keeps the light on in your eyes. So keep those things in box 1 and 4. Now look in box 2 and 3. This is what's wrong with our life. This is not what's not working in our life. However, if you've ever flown into Dulles Airport, right outside of Washington, D.C., John Foster Dulles said, the mark of a successful person is not whether he or she has problems. It's whether he or she has the same problems they had last year. So the question is, how long? Part of our clarity calls is to get crystal clear about what's in box 2 and 3 and to realize these are the things that are undermining the quality of our life and to get crystal clear on changing them starting today as of someday. Now, our next 4 guests, I think, are going to have some stories that can help make that happen. So please keep What Do I Want right in front of you as you hear these inspiring stories of people who got crystal clear about something and then did something about it. Our special guest tonight is Dr. Ivan Meisner. And chances are you know someone in BNI because there's more than 260,000 people in the world in 10,000 chapters who are in BNI. They've generated billions of dollars of referrals and bottom line business to each other in this wonderful rising tide, raising all involved community. And please welcome Dr. Ivan Meisner. Let's hear your clarity story.
Thank you so much, Sam. And listen, I love your book, Someday is Not a Day of the Week. I quote it in a recent book that I did, Infinite Giving. And, I really believe that someday can be today and it can start with us. And that's part of, I think, what you're talking about with clarity. For me, I think my most powerful clarity story involves someone who you know as well, Stuart Emring. And probably 5-6 years ago, Stuart came to me and talked about this idea about who's in your room. And that brought such clarity to me. It might have been even more, it might have been 7 years ago that he brought it to me. Anyway, that brought such clarity to me in my life. And so that's what I'd like to share with everyone here. Imagine that you live your life in one room. And that one room has only one door. And that one door is an enter-only door so that when people come into your room or into your life, they're there forever. You can never get them out. Now, luckily, this is a metaphor, but if it were true, would you be more selective about the people that you've let into your life? Sam, would you be more selective?
I would be more selective.
That's what everybody says. So our question then is, then why aren't we? And this is the dialogue that I had with Stuart that led us to write this book. And really, people would argue with us as we were writing the book, well, they're really not in your room. You can get them out of your life. And when they're out of your life, they're out of your room. So here's what I'd like you to do. Everyone who's watching this, all of you, Sam, I'd like you to think of someone you got out of your life and think about why you wanted them out of your life. Were they toxic? Were they difficult? Were they angry? Were they, whatever the reasons were. So I want you to think of someone, and Sam, I'm not going to ask you to say who it is. So you don't have to tell us who it is, but I want all of you to think of someone. And most importantly, I want you to think of why you wanted them out of your life. What was one of the last things they did? And you just said, that's enough. I want them out. So Sam, without telling us who it is, do you have someone in mind?
Ivan, it took me about a quarter of a second to think of this person.
And do you remember some of the things that they did that made you say, why is this person in my life, and make you decide to get them out of your life?
Absolutely.
So here's the deal. If they're still in your head, they're still in your room, and they will be forever. You see, it's more than a metaphor, because the relationships, personal and professional relationships you have throughout your life will be in your room for the rest of your life, because the room that we talk about begins here and ends here. It's your mind. It's the people you meet. It's the impact that they have on your life. We interviewed Dr. Daniel Amen, the psychiatrist and neuroscientist. And one of the things that he said that I thought was incredibly powerful was, when you have a relationship with someone, personal or professional, their fingerprints are all over your brain, and they'll be there for the rest of your life. And when you think of this person that hopefully you all thought of, you will make decisions, good or bad, based on the experiences that you had with that person, which are probably bad. But you may miss an opportunity because you don't want to have anything similar to that kind of experience. Or you may have a great experience and do something, kind of crazy the next time because you just assume they'll all be great experiences. It's so important to be careful who you let into your room. And how do you pick who gets in your room? This was the dialogue that Stuart and I had that just brought great clarity to me as to my room. My room was a revolving door. People were just like coming in and they couldn't leave. I'd be letting people in all the time. And one of the things that we came to clarity on was that we needed a doorman. And you can call it a bouncer, a guardian, a door person if you're in California, whatever you want to call them. They're your conscious and subconscious mind. And it is their job, it's your job, your conscious, your subconscious mind to say, wait a minute, let's keep this person on the porch until we get to know who they really are. And how do you determine that? Well, you determine that by getting good with your values. You gotta know what your values are. If you don't know your personal values, you can't train your doorman to screen people at the porch and to let them in. And when I talk to people, and I'm not going to ask anybody to do this today, but when I talk to people, I'll say, give me your top 7 values in any order of importance. I don't care. It's like watching a deer in the headlights. They're like, 7? Yeah, 6, 7. Well, honesty. Okay, great. That's 1. Give me 6 more. People don't know their values. If you don't know your personal values, you can't train your doorman to screen people who are coming into your life. And I think another really important piece of all of this is that you want to make sure to start the process with your deal breakers. It's so easy to think about your values when you know your deal breakers. And when I'm hitting close to 12 minutes, Sam, feel free to give me a 1-minute notice and I'll wrap up. You got to start with deal breakers, because everybody can think of a deal breaker. I'm going to ask you this one, Sam, and maybe if you're okay, maybe you'll answer it. I want you to think of something that is an absolute deal breaker in a relationship, whether it's personal or professional, whatever. It's a total deal breaker. You're not going to let that person in your room if they do what?
if they're untrustworthy and if they complain all the time.
Yeah, complain all the time. So in that conversation that I had with Stuart, that first conversation years ago, we talked about what was my deal breaker. And for me, my deal breaker was drama, people dripping in drama. Look, we all have drama. I have drama. Even Sam Horn probably has a little bit of drama. Most of us have drama. I'm not talking about the average person. I'm talking about the person, and you know who I'm talking about, the people that are just, there's always crazy drama in their life. And I realized I had 2 or 3 in my life. And the clarity came when I also realized I let them in. It was all my fault that they were in my room. And I went back that week. There was somebody who was running a project in my company, and I fired that person that week because they were just full of drama. And I figured, hey, I can handle this guy's drama. But what I didn't think about was the impact it had on everyone else, which created more chaos. I literally terminated the person the following week because of my conversation with Stuart, and the project completely turned around on a dime. And this whole idea of who's in your room and having clarity with it is, I think it's a game changer. And you know what? Mom told us this when we were kids, right? I don't want you hanging out with that Johnny. He's a bad influence, or whatever it was. It was like, I don't want you. But this gives it a way of thinking about it, rather than, I don't want you hanging out with this. Think about who you want close to you, who is important to you. Know your values, and learn how to say no without sounding like a jerk, or worse. That's one of the things we talk about. And I know we're probably almost out of time. I'm going to give you one more piece out of Who's in Your Room. We talk about balance in life and the importance of balance. So those of you watching this, I'm going to share with you what I think the secret to balance is. Are you ready? Forget about balance, you'll never have it. Now, often when I say that to people, they're like, really? Seriously, that's your advice? Okay, it gets better. I think balance is, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running a business, but even if you're, my late wife who was a homemaker, balance is tough because we look at balance like scales. My personal life has to be in balance with my business life, which has to be in balance with my health, which has to be in balance with my spirituality. And the truth is that life is more of a juggling act than it is a balancing act. And so if you create the room that you want, if you know your values, if you know your deal breakers, if you learn how to deal with the people, which is a whole section in the book, deal with the people that are in your room that you let in and shouldn't have, or family members that, are just in. When you've done all of that, then rather than think about a life of balance, think of a life of harmony. It's more than semantics, because even the graphic for the yin and the yang, harmony, if you pull them apart, are out of balance. I've not lived a life of balance, but I have lived a life of harmony. I'll give you just one thing for the harmony, because I know I'm out of time. One technique to use to help you create a life of harmony is 3 simple words. Be here now. Be fully present to where you are. If you're at work, don't be thinking about the fact that you didn't spend time with the family last night. If you're with the family, don't be thinking about the work project that's got to get done. Wherever you are, be fully present to that moment. And that's the first of many steps to create a life of harmony. So Sam, Who's in Your Room it was brought to me by our mutual friend, Stuart Emery, was what brought unbelievable clarity to my life and to my wife's life. We had one deal breaker. I don't know if I ever told you this, and I'm done. We had a deal breaker on couples that we would spend time with. My late wife and I would only spend time with couples who treated each other with love and respect. Both. Sometimes they weren't very loving or very, and listen, nobody's perfect. Sometimes I wasn't as loving as I should have been or whatever. But we wanted to hang out with couples who treated each other with love and respect, and that was a deal breaker for us. So those are my thoughts. Sam, back to you.
Ivan, I'm do several things. Number one is that we're going to be putting up in our Facebook group your book, Who's in Your Room. We're also going to put in your podcast because I can just see the way that people are responding. They want more, Ivan. And you not only interview fascinating thought leaders from around the world, you also share some of your techniques from how many books?
26, but who's counting?
26.
But you know what? My podcast is good, but it's very BNI centric. Let me suggest my blog, ivanmeisner.com, because that is much more general than the BNI podcast.
Excellent. Then we'll go ahead and put that information up. And thank you. Ivan, I took notes.
So, you always take notes. You're great at this.
See, I'm clear that we ink it when we think it, and it helps us be here now. So, Ivan, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
And now I get to introduce a very good friend of mine, Judy Gray. Judy Gray was head of one of the top 5 chambers in the country. She was executive director for the Veterinary Association, for Florida Association of Association Execs. She founded CEO on Calls, and she's going to be sharing her clarity story with us. Judy, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Ivan, for your remarks too. I made notes too, by the way. I was 16 when I experienced a moment of clarity that changed who I am at my core. My brother Jimmy came home from college for Thanksgiving. He and my stepfather got into a terrible argument, and my stepfather banned him from our house. I watched from the dining room window as my brother set out with his suitcase for the 2-mile walk in the snow to meet up with his ride back to school. My stepfather would not allow my mother to take him. He sat stone-faced in his chair. My mother, distraught, was standing behind me. She was weeping and wringing her hands. Tears were streaming down my face too, because I realized that I was powerless to help her or to help my brother. I knew in that moment that I needed to become the kind of person who would not allow anyone to have the power to harm me or my family again. I vowed to become strong and successful so that I would have the confidence that courage requires. Fast forward 30 years, I'm the president of a national organization in DC, working on a big project with one of our consultants. She was in my office, Louise was in my office when I was wrapping up a phone call with one of our board members. And when I hung up, Louise said, "May I make an observation about your management style?" And I thought, you're going to do it anyway, so yeah, go ahead. And she said, "You're so easy to underestimate." She said, "You're sunny and cheery, and you want everybody to win." And she said, "And yet someone, if they cross a moral or ethical boundary with you, you become the most formidable person I have ever known." I said, "Good. Thank you." That situation with my brother prompted my first poem that was ever published. I call it, "Where Have I Been All My Life?" I waited for you, Superman. You failed me, Wonder Woman. In times of stress and real duress, I had to save myself. Please love and care for me, I'd beg, to friends and kin alike. But along the way to being okay, I learned to love myself. I had looked to strangers for solutions, to others words for wisdom. Then came the day they were away. I began to count on me. I had tried to have a perfect life, wanting too much, too soon, and more. So I threw fantasy aside, took reality in stride, and eyes open, I started to live. Thank you.
Yay. Judy Gray, I'm going to indulge, okay? Because I built in a little cushion here. Can I tell?
I'm very worried.
Can I tell a story, Judy Gray?
I'm not sure, Sam. You're going to anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Judy Gray takes over for the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, and she happens to be there at an event before she takes over, and she is aghast because they are introducing their sponsors, and people are talking and eating and not even paying attention. Well, Judy Gray has absolute clarity that that is not how you treat your sponsors. So what did you do, Judy Gray?
At the luncheon, I said, I need to share with you how I felt about the cocktail party last night, where we were introducing our sponsors and thanking our host. And I said, to tell you frankly, I was embarrassed. And I couldn't believe that we weren't extending the courtesy to these people. All of my association members had sponsors and had events of their own. And I said, you know how important it is that we give these people the attention that they deserve. And I said, so tonight, when we have the next cocktail party, it's a week-long conference, I said, I'd like to ask you to work with me, because we're going to turn the lights up, we're going to turn the music off. And when I step up to the mic to introduce our sponsors and our chairman, I'd appreciate it if you just give us a few minutes to honor those people. And sure enough, they did.
Didn't you even ask him, Judy, to like turn their chairs and like you talked him through it? It's like put your silverware down. You know, it's like stuff. It was, and here's the thing: is that Judy, this was one of your first events as the new executive director, so some people could have seen it as a risk. Your clarity that these values were so important that you were going to model them and enforce them and hold people accountable for them. You earned the respect of every single one of those members, some of them head of multi-million, multi-billion-dollar companies. So a parting comment about your clarity about that, Judy?
I just realized when I thought about doing it that they were all professionals and that they were all people of good intent. And that if I could just appeal to them on a real level without chastising them, but just sharing how I felt about the experience, that perhaps they would see it in a different light. And I was very appreciative that they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, they sure did. I had the privilege of going to a couple of her member orientations, and you know that every single member orientation would have, how many people did you have on your board, Judy?
125.
125 people on your board. All of you are like picking yourself up off the floor.
They were all Washington area CEOs. And
right.
so it was quite an experience being accountable to all of them, but we made good things happen.
Yes, you did. As a result.
Thank you, Sam.
And thank you, Judy. And I'm so excited to introduce our next guest, which is Dr. Betty Mosley Brown, who, well, she'll tell her story, her clarity story, and we are celebrating the launch of her book next week. So Betty, join us, please.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Dr. Ivan and Judy. Wow, I got it. I have my room and I know who I'm letting in. So thank you. I got to tell you, in 2012, I did not have clarity. I was hungry. I was one of those people who wanted to take on everything. Not only did I work full-time in the federal government, I was right down in Washington, D.C., right where you were talking about, Judy, but I also decided that I could lead a nonprofit, not just any nonprofit, a nonprofit of women who served in the Marine Corps, either in the regular or reserve, and were part of a nonprofit known as Women Marines Association. I had a fire inside of me. I was all ready. So in 2012, when I did it, I thought immediately, I need to start writing things down because I need a book. I met such incredible women who served in the military. I heard so many stories of trust that needed to be shared because they had gotten through it. They moved through it, and that needed to be shared. So in 2012, had the idea. I knew that someday was a day, but it wasn't that day. So then I got to 2014, I got to 2016, and I was still president of this nonprofit. I was still working full time. And by then the politicalness of it all got together, and I said, okay, the book will be someday on a shelf, which became No Day. And I continued to work. And in 2018, I decided that I was going to retire. I was going to hang up my federal government uniform, but a lovely lady that looks a lot like Sam, it's not Sam, but Sam knows who I'm talking about, came by my office and she said, Betty, are you really ready to retire? And I thought to myself, retirement is not today. And she then gave me the opportunity to move across the United States to work virtually. No more 2-hour one-way commutes. And I was excited. I could do all the things that I wanted to do. I dusted off the manuscript, got my book back out, and then I had it all ready. And then I met Sam Horn. And I heard the first thing out of her mouth, she talked about someday is not a day of the week. And I said, you're absolutely right, Sam. Someday needs to be today. And so I am so happy to say that on Sunday is the day. Someday is Sunday. Sunday will be the launch of my book. And thank you, Sam, beyond words. It's called Leadership Lessons, Personal Reflections from a Woman Marine. I share stories from my childhood, what I learned in uniform, and just what I learned in life. So while it's not 26 books, Dr. Ivan, it is book number 1, and I think I have a whole lot more stories to tell. So thank you, Sam, for allowing me to tell my Clarity story.
You bet. And now in a moment, I'm going to introduce Leah. However, a book is a big deal, especially since it's something you wanted to do for a long time. So 60 seconds or less, if you're going to say one of your most important insights from that book, what might that be, please, Betty?
The most important insight is to be still. So many of us are going so fast in life. We forget to look at the butterflies. We forget to hear the music. We forget who our family are. So to really gain harmony, you must be still.
Good. I love all these different clarity points. Thank you so much. And best wishes on Sunday. I'll be helping to spread the word for you.
Thank you.
Okay. And Leah, I know you have also a story about how you got clarity on something. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you, Sam, for having me. And thank you to all of the panelists. What a privilege to be part of this group. I would like to start with my clarity story is somewhat new, but I would like for you all to imagine with me for a moment a little girl, a brunette. She was a shy bookworm who would tell people when asked that all she wanted to do when she was an adult was write books. So imagine that. The little girl turned into a big girl, and she went on a study abroad program called Semester at Sea, where she met a blonde girl. And these two, despite being completely diametrically opposed in every way possible, night and day from each other, they formed a once-in-a-lifetime friendship. They were each other's soul. They became best friends. The next decade saw them jumping on airplanes to spend time together since they lived across the country. They spent time on the phone, emails, everything you can imagine, talking each other through jobs, through relationship drama, through everything that life would throw at a 20-something just trying to make it through. And then imagine that brunette getting a phone call in March of 2011 that the blonde, her best friend, was dead. And not just dead, but had actually been murdered by her colleague. That brunette is me, and the blonde was my best friend, Jana Murray. The murder made headlines across the country in 2011. It was called the Lululemon Murder, the yoga store murder. The crime scene photos were everywhere. I had been through loss before. I had been through grief, but I had not been through trauma. I hadn't been through a murder. I had no idea how to keep going when this person, my heart, was no longer here. My husband and I, we were newlyweds. We made the decision to leave our jobs, sell everything, and volunteer and backpack around the world for 2 years. I blogged during that time as a way to grieve and process. And I thought, someday there might be a book in this. Someday, maybe I'll write. We finished our trip. We came home. We got new jobs. The years passed by. We bought a house, had a son. And even throughout all of this, I had people in my circle telling me that I needed to write. Friends, family, grad school professors, that I had a gift with words and that I had a story and that I should share it. But still in my head, I thought, who wants to hear this? Nobody's gonna, what do I have to share? This just seems selfish. Who would want to read something that I wrote? So I thought maybe eventually, we'll see. And then it was last fall, actually, my moment of clarity, sitting on a couch, lightning bolt of clarity from reading Sam's book when she talked about a dream that wanted to be born. And it was in that moment that I realized, oh my gosh, yes. The anniversary of Jana, the 10-year anniversary of Jana's death was approaching. And I realized that I had a moral imperative really to tell her story, to tell our story, to speak to people as a tribute to what she had lived, and in hopes that someone might maybe find some kind of comfort and solace in my words and in my grief journey. So it's really thanks to Sam's words that I had my moment of clarity, and that I have decided to write my own story, which will allow me to honor my best friend and give birth to the dream that I've had since I was a little girl. So this is especially poignant for me today. I am coming to you from Colorado. I'm sure everyone's aware of everything that's happened in Boulder, which is where I got my undergrad degree. I shopped at that store. So I really just see this as Phoenix rising from death. Excuse me, from death comes clarity and new vision. So thank you, Sam.
You know, Leah, I've never heard it said that way before, that clarity is a moral imperative. Clarity is a moral imperative. You know, Leah, how can we support you moving forward?
That I don't know. This is a very new, I have just started writing on the side. I appreciate you asking. Excuse me. I really just need to be held accountable. And that's why I launched my ship in public, as your book described. I immediately told friends, family, LinkedIn, colleagues, I need to be held accountable. I have a lot going on personally as well. But I need to, I owe this to her, and I owe this to me. So really support just means holding me accountable, checking in. That would be wonderful.
Okay, so today is March 23rd, right?
Yes.
Well, how about on the 23rd of every month? Will you post a little update on our?
I love that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Let us know how you're doing so we can help. So we will be accountable cheerleaders, right? Both cheering you on, giving you wind beneath your wings, and also letting you know how important it is to get that project out in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. And I need to keep my time promise to all of us. So we're going to wrap up in 1 minute. And here's our action for today. Those words, what do I want? I mean it. Please get out crayons or color pens or flowers or stickies, or just do what I do. Here's mine. What do you want? It sits on my writing desk, and I see it probably 20, 30 times a day. I look up and my eyes fall on it, and it has become my North Star. I've never used the words, it's a moral imperative, and yet every single one of you, when you got crystal clear about honoring our sponsors, or about letting people in our room, or about honoring women and in the military and the lessons learned, or honoring your best friend, every single time we get clear about something and we do something about it, we make our life better, and we make the lives better for the people around us. So what do I want? Maybe we can follow up on what Ivan said and put our values on there so that they also serve as our North Star. And we just keep it top of mind. And between now and next time, by the way, it's going to be the second and fourth Monday of next month in April. Our next guest is Dr. Tom Morse. He was the most popular professor at Notre Dame. I saw 60 seconds, Sam. I saw him speak at Young Presidents Organization, and I will always remember his opening keynote. He took the stage and he said to the audience, he said, "What's your definition of the good life?" And everyone, got boats, planes, travel, so forth. And he changed one word and he said, "What's the definition of a good life?" Completely different answers. He'll be joining us next time as our featured guest. And I want to thank everyone who joined us today. We'll be putting your information up on our private Facebook page so that people can follow up with you. So Dr. Ivan Meisner and Judy Gray, Dr. Mosley, Dr. Betty Mosley Brown, and Leah McPhail, thank you so much. And may we all get crystal clear on what we want and bring more of it into our life now, not someday. Bye for now.